Live, sir.
Okay, thank you. Welcome, everyone. It's October 20th, 2020. It's a few minutes past 1 o'clock. We're meeting remotely, and this is a meeting of the Finance Committee. Councilwoman Mealy is the chair of this committee, and she's tied up for a few moments. So I'm Council President Randy Allison, and I'm just sitting in to get the meeting started. So without any further ado, we will jump in. And our first item is our interview with Gretchen Kennedy to be appointed to the Accessibility Commission. And Mrs. Kennedy, welcome.
Good afternoon, and you're welcome. Thank you for the welcome.
Oh, yes. Thank you for stepping forward and volunteering. This is not like there's no vote on this when we interview people. It's just to introduce ourselves to each other and kind of get a sense of how you see yourself fitting into the Accessibility Committee and the purposes of the Accessibility Committee. There's some council people also in attendance, Mr. Mackey and Mr. Polizzi. And Mr. Mackey has been the spearhead of this effort to get the Accessibility Committee up and running, and he wrote the ordinance. So, he'll definitely be a part of this conversation. If you'd just like to give us a brief introduction of yourself. You don't have to give us a deep bio. I think a lot of us already know you to some extent because you've been to council meetings and committee meetings before. But perhaps you could talk a little bit about your interest in serving on the Accessibility Committee and what you see as the function of that committee.
Well, what I had read, and I'm saying only what I read, was that you wanted to have a committee to work on making things accessible for disabled people into government buildings. I would like to be part of this program because I'm disabled, have been in most of the government buildings in town, and have a lot of non-government buildings. I have a scooter. When I had my old scooter, I was in your elevator. I don't know if I could get the new scooter in there or not. It was very tight. Anyway, I think I'm able to pick out and design where changes need to take place. And I'm familiar with most government officials and can be an asset to your program. I don't know what you expect of me, but I'll put my best foot forward.
Thank you, Gretchen. Mrs. Katz or Mr. Mackey, do you have any particular questions you wanted to ask or join in on?
Bonnie, would you like to go first? I've had the opportunity to speak with Ms. Kennedy on several different occasions now. Ms. Kennedy, aside from City Hall, I think we're all aware of what's happening with City Hall and the litigation that's going on right now.
Yeah.
If you look at it, when you look at the ordinance and you look at section 2 that kind of outlines what the commission is supposed to be doing, I really look to section D where we want this to serve as a resource and a review mechanism, to kind of aid in the development of programs and services for people with disabilities.
And I have to add the elderly as well, not just disabled people, but for the elderly too, because sometimes we don't. I'm 80, and I know that the people where I live, they don't like to ask questions, and I think that showing them what we have, that's important.
Yes. Well, I guess maybe could you tell us just a little bit of maybe just a quick background on some experiences you've had with this kind of work? I feel like we've had this conversation, and I apologize, I don't remember the exact details.
Well, on and off over the years, I have worked in the hospital or in the medical field for 25 years. I worked as a nursing assistant. I worked in the ER as an EMT for 9 years. No, I didn't work in the ER for 9 years, but I was an EMT for 9 years. I went to another state and I was in a fire company there for better than a year. I worked with mentally handicapped people. That was my first introduction to them. I worked for the Eastern Panhandle Training Center, and I had a group home, and I had 9 clients, Friday night till Sunday night, and that's my 48 hours. Anyway, and then I came up here. I worked for Hope. I worked in one of their group homes. I worked for CMSU. I had to go down to Danville, where my family's from, to help my dad with my mother. So I had experience there with her. Also, I worked for CMSU, which is Columbia, Montour, Snyder County, for I want to say independent living. No, yeah. They lived in group homes too, and I worked with them. And I worked in a nursing home again, but and I worked in retail. No, I've been around a lot, and as I grew up, I was all over the country. So I have an idea. I can't say I'm not street smart, because I am pretty much.
Well, and you definitely sound like you have the experience that we're looking for.
Yeah.
Aside from and Tyler, these questions will be relevant to you as well. So just so I don't have to ask them again. Aside from City Hall specifically, is there anything else in the city of Williamsport that you think needs addressed, and is something that
the building where you go to register to vote, that was horrible to get in. And the only reason, and it's funny because when I was walking is when I went into that office, and I registered then I had registered to vote before that when I first moved back to town. I raised my family here, then I moved to West Virginia, then I moved to Danville, and then I came back, and I was working at Home Depot at that time. Well, then I decided to retire when I was 73, so, but I had been down there to check on getting absentee ballot, and it was very hard to get in and out of that building. And then later on this year, I went to lunch at Julie's, and I had even more trouble getting in because you have 2 doors that open the same way. Oh, well, anyway, if that's considered a government building, I'd say that's one. I've been in the courthouse. I've been both courthouses. So I don't know what you're looking for here.
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, I can pass the floor.
Well, and I've complained about the sidewalks too. I ride in the street, in case everybody doesn't know it, and they see this thing going down the street with a flag on the back. That's me, because I won't ride the sidewalks, even the new ones. They put in the bricks and all kinds of things, and nobody has an idea how bad it feels on your back.
So sidewalks might be something else that you feel this commission.
Yeah, well, it'll always be one of my problems. So.
Well, I will open the floor up to anyone else that would like to ask any questions.
Okay, thank you.
Bonnie, do you have anything?
I just, I was listening to what John was asking her. Gretchen, are you at home making this phone call?
Yes, I am.
Okay, because I thought I heard other voices in the background.
You did. You probably did. I have a friend here from the independent living.
Okay.
She's been my advocate for quite a while now.
Okie dokie. Just wanted to know. I know you've been all over. I know you do a lot of letters to the editor and things like that. And we're just trying to get a clear picture of what accessibility means to you and to the community. And this is why this commission was set up. And I think John has asked the questions, and I think you've answered them. So I thank you.
I hope you have heard everything. If you need any more, you can always call me. John's got my number. Thank you very
Gotcha.
much.
Yeah. Yes, thank you, Gretchen, for coming today. And I think from conversations we've had, this accessibility committee, obviously, it's going to be an advisory committee to study things and bring information to the full body of council and the administration. And we look at it as a team that's going to form and work together to make our community better and come to consensus on different issues.
Right.
They can be addressed.
Well, it make me feel better if we don't have to close the city hall that we have, because we have a beautiful building there.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm glad you appreciate that. Thank you. We have a separate committee looking into that. So we have a lot of balls in the air right now, but we see this as an important step forward, this committee particularly. So thank you very much today.
You're quite welcome anytime.
Okay. And so we'll move to item 2. Tyler, I'm going to attempt to pronounce your last name, Mogavero.
Yep, sounds great. Thank you, President
Very
Alderson.
Nice. Yes, Allison.
Allison, thank you.
Very nice to have you here today. And if you want to share a little bit about yourself and
Sure, thank you for having me. I was born and raised in New Jersey, graduated from Rutgers University, continued to work in New Jersey for a period of 7 years at various chemical manufacturers, lighting, commercial and industrial manufacturers, priding themselves for made in the USA products, and recently finished employment at Benjamin Moore. I recently moved to Williamsport for the past 3 months and would explain the Accessibility Commission as a group to protect forecasted service in the city of Williamsport for mental and physical disabilities. Given my search for work in the city, I would share that flexible work hours and extended working days for adults justify improvements, both furniture and technology improvements at JV Brown, which are growth opportunities for residents given the pressure put at home, changing the social dynamics of households, of corporate work, offices. I'd like to share with the committee at Penn Tech, visitors are not permitted during any business hours given COVID. On the first floor, there's access to private meeting rooms, stand-up desks, and group seating unavailable at JV Brown. Having access to dual screen monitors and the ability to pair your laptop and monitors on site is essential. JV Brown does not have any adapters on hand, such as VGA, HDMI, USB connections. Conference rooms should be equipped with whiteboards and a monitor. This promotes good facilitation of information. It's very engaging. And for me, most importantly, it's person-to-person interaction. Access to phone and video systems would complement product offerings and offset costs for families. These concerns were shared with Douglas Harkness, the IT professional, and the director, Barbara, in August. I still seek understanding on how available commercial real estate at JV Brown, the Covation Center, as well as available spaces for flexible employees, possibly looking to work at some of the restaurants in town, local spaces available to the public, and really utilize the flexibility of these new conditions for employees, those self-employed, and those looking to start a new business. At Rutgers University, where I graduated, spaces were available 24/7, often in each dorm room, building complex, at least one campus library, and there was plenty of informal space in hallways of lecture hall buildings, often floors aligned with separate enforced guidelines. Overall space was available and competed with corporate offerings. I haven't been seeing much of that locally. I think it's critical to, at any time, know you have a place to go to reflect, read, educate, and collaborate with others. Because I'm new to the community, I'm definitely interested in understanding the market here in Williamsport as far as new businesses. I shop, browse, volunteer, and continue to develop relationships with close to 5 to 10 businesses in Williamsport by the end of the month. I look forward to continuing discussions and volunteering my time with the following. I plan this afternoon to go to the Loyalsock Volunteer Fire Company. I had the chance to volunteer myself while in high school. Williamsport Red Shield Community Garden receives my vegetable waste weekly, given my new vegetarian diet. The Genetti Hotel seems a fundamental asset to the community. I was hoping to work with them on supporting similar vegetable waste donations. And I look forward to having a format to share my feedback, both in a group familiar with City Hall practices in hopes of influencing further decisions, both publicly, privately, and myself as someone seeking work. So thank you for the opportunity to speak today. Thank you, John, for sharing this opportunity with me. That's all I have for today. If you have any questions related to anything, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, thank you, Tyler. That's very extensive and wide-ranging experiences and knowledge that you have there. And there's no doubt we're probably lagging behind in the IT area, definitely. And we're trying to get ourselves up to speed in city government, but the more we can make ourselves more accessible to people with IT of all kinds, the more attractive of the community we're going to be. And we do, that's one thing we're focused on, is Williamsport growing and being a place that people want to, of every spectrum, want to come and live and participate in. I'll ask John or Bonnie if they have any things they wanted to ask or say.
Bonnie, I'll let you go.
First of all, Tyler, okay, because you said you have to leave shortly here. Do you want to get questions in, John, before you have to leave?
No, I'm good. I've had a chance to talk to Tyler on a couple different occasions as well. So, and I just want to thank him and Gretchen for their willingness to serve on this commission. And Tyler, you definitely sound very passionate about a lot of these things. So thank you for that.
Oh, absolutely. Look forward to participating. I don't know if there's a date set for the first meeting or how we will know who's selected for the committee, but I look forward to joining and making myself available.
Tyler, can I ask exactly how do you pronounce your last name?
Mogavera.
Mogavera, okay. Wanted to make sure we were doing it correctly. I know exactly where you went to school. I lived a couple of blocks from there for a few years. Near Rutgers. Beautiful area. Could see the Statue of Liberty from my apartment building.
Wow. Yeah, there were
And
so
it's
many
a
developments.
fantastic institute.
They were growing the university the 4 years I was there. I had a chance to go back maybe 2 or 3 years ago. Still more growth and developments in the communities surrounding the university. So it was a pleasure having the chance to go there and graduate with an engineering degree.
Your resume is really impressive of what you've done, what you've accomplished. I, you know, I think you and Gretchen have got to understand that we're really looking for help and guidance in what we can do with our city buildings. And when I say city, it has to do with our own government buildings. We have no control over what goes on with J.V. Brown Library or the federal courthouse or the other courthouse. We can pass on that information, but for us, we are interested in what we're going to accomplish with our own buildings that the city owns personally. And this is where, I think we all want to get that information and compile it. We have, like Randy said, we have 2 committees going here. We have this commission that we're looking at from getting the input from the community as far as accessibility goes. And then we have the other committees that are looking at, are we going to stay in City Hall? What other buildings are accessible to us for the betterment of our community? And this is what we're working on. So just keep that in mind when you come to the meetings. We are more interested in what we can accomplish for our own Williamsport City buildings, okay? Not the federal or even, like I said, the library. We have no control over what goes on in those areas at all. We have control of what we can accomplish in our own situation with our city. I think John, Randy, I think this is, what we're looking for, answers in that respect, that we respect what goes on in the community. We want to know how we can make their lives as progressive and prosperous as possible. I own a business downtown, and one of the things that I did when I set up my store was to make sure that anybody that came in with accessibility problems could go maneuver through my whole store. And if it wasn't, I was able to move my fixtures around to make it comfortable and easier for them to maneuver. I also have the double doors, so it's accessible for anybody that comes through my store. And there are buildings I know downtown and businesses that have, it's because they're older buildings, don't have that kind of accessibility. I was lucky the way my building is situated. But again, we have no say in that. I did it personally inside my store. I was lucky the way my store is situated. But there are other businesses that they don't have say on what they can do with their buildings. This is why I'm trying to say to you that we want to make sure that our government buildings, our city government buildings, are accessible and comfortable for everybody to enter.
I think the one other thing that we're also looking at, Bonnie, is potentially in the future, once we've kind of gotten the ways in which this committee will operate ironed out, possibly we would be looking to the committee to make recommendations for new land developments and things like that. To provide help to developers within the city who might be looking to make their projects as accessible as possible. But that's once again in the future, because we have to get our own ducks in a row before we move forward on anything like that. But that said, what was I going to say? I think both Ms. Kennedy and Mr. Mogavero, this is very much this is the beginning of a process for the city. And so, Mr. Mogavero, I heard some doubts in your voice. When are you going to find out if you've been if you've become a member of the committee, et cetera, et cetera. That question I can answer for you, but in terms of the exact work of the committee, we've tried as much as we can to outline it in the ordinance that created the commission. But to a certain extent, we will be working with the members of the commission to figure out exactly what the focus of the commission should be, and whether or not we need to modify the mission of the commission to best suit the needs of both the city and the commission members. In terms of when you'll find out whether or not you've been appointed to be a member of the commission, we will vote on that on Thursday evening in front of the full body of council, and the finance committee will represent what you and Ms. Kennedy has said to us today to the full body of council on Thursday.
Liz, can I interrupt you? I think Randy and John would like to bring everybody. They have a couple more people to interview and would like to vote on this on the 3rd of November, not this
Fantastic.
Thursday.
Thank
Okay.
you, Bonnie. I apologize, Mr. Mogavera. Thank you for
This just happened in like the last hour or two.
Yeah, no, I know, and I was a little zoned out because I've been with my child at the doctor. But anyway, we will be settling on it shortly, and then we'll reach out to you, Mr. Mogavera, if you're not in attendance at that meeting, to let you know the outcome.
Fantastic, thank you.
Okay. Yep. And what else was I going to say? Are there any, Bonnie, do you have any further comments?
No, but I want to thank them both for stepping up. It's always wonderful to have citizens that are willing to participate and help our city move forward and more positively.
Yeah, thank you, Bonnie.
Okay, excellent. The finance committee won't take a vote on these items today. We're simply going to discuss them with the full body of council and provide some more in-depth information. So we can move on to the next item on our agenda, which would be, pardon me here, a resolution authorizing the execution of a community contribution agreement. Mr. Slaughter, I believe that you'll, Mayor Slaughter, I believe that you'll be discussing this today.
Ms.
I
Mealy,
don't
I think Mr. Allison was going to move that to the end of the meeting.
Okay,
mayor is-
okay,
mayor's
that
tied
is
up right
okay
now.
with me. I had actually asked him to do that. Is that okay with everyone else?
Yes, I don't see the mayor here, so I think that's the best thing to do.
Perfect. All right, let's do it. All right. Then in that case, the next item on our agenda, Mr. Winder, are you in attendance?
Yes.
All right. Item number 3, item number 4, excuse me, the execution of a joint funding agreement between the U.S. Geological Survey, Water Center, U.S. Department of Interior, and the city. Mr. Winder?
This is our annual agreement with the U.S. Geological Survey, Pennsylvania Water Science Center, United States Department of Interior. This is for the Susquehanna River to notify us of what the water levels are. It is very important during a heavy rain event so we can monitor the levels of the Susquehanna River. It is a joint agreement. Our portion will be $1,725 for the year. As I said, it's a key element in monitoring the river levels for the pump stations and part of the protection of the levee. We have been doing this for, I want to say, the last 15 years.
For a sec. Thanks, Adam. Bonnie, do you have any questions?
The only thing on the resolution itself, we should have the cost in there, Adam. Do you
Sorry, I
think?
thought we did. Do we not, Bonnie? I thought I checked that.
I don't see a cost in on the
Okay.
No,
resolution.
it's not in the resolution. I can certainly add it. Basically, you know, we've never had it in there before, so I just mimicked the prior one, but I can definitely put it in there.
I think people are looking at the resolutions, and I think we have to put the cost in there only because of that. They only look at the first page, even though all the other pages are included.
Yep, no problem.
But
Are you
thank
okay with me just adding that and sending it just to Janice, or do you all want a new copy with the amount in it?
I think the only
Okay.
copy we really get is electronic at this point, Adam.
Okay,
So I think you could copy all of us when you send the new resolution to Janice.
okay.
But that would be all that we need.
All right.
Okay. But yeah, aside from that, we've seen
I have
this
no
agreement
questions.
multiple times. Yeah, you have no questions, Bonnie?
No,
Is this going to be a recurring annual agreement now, Adam? I thought we were seeing it every couple of years, but we saw it just last
Yeah.
year.
It's every year.
Okay. All right. somehow or another, it didn't really register until last year. Okay. So hearing no further questions, anything else from anyone else out there in the Zoom world?
I make a motion that we pass it on to full body of council with a positive recommendation.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Liz, before you go any
Thanks,
further, Randy didn't take a call, so Janice could have everybody on who's present at the meeting.
Oh, Randy did not take a roll call?
No, she didn't. He didn't.
Okay. Got it. I can do that here in just a moment, Bonnie. Let me, you know what? I'm going to give it a minute to do that. I'm going to introduce Adam's next item, and then I'll do a roll call.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So Adam, the item on the agenda is a resolution authorizing the purchase of a 2020 ODB 25 cubic yard truck mounted debris collector. Tell us about that.
This is a 25-yard.
Sounds very appealing, Adam.
I'm sorry?
Said it sounds very appealing.
This is a 25-yard, we'll call it a glorified vacuum for leaves. The DEP grant was awarded to us in February of 2020. We just got notification that the funding is in place. This was one of the items that we had reached out for with this grant opportunity. It is a 2020 ODB truck mounted unit on a Freightliner M2-106 chassis. The purchase would be made through Stevenson Equipment, which is CoStar's. The total amount would be $200,094.76. With the grant, there is a 10% match. That 10% match is being taken care of through in-kind services. We've started the process of implementing the gate for the brush pile. We've ran all the electric to it, a lot of trenching, a lot of hand work. So that 10% match will be covered completely under all of that for the entire project. And if you have any questions, I'm more happy to answer.
Fantastic. Just one quick question, Adam, while I'm thinking about it. When do we estimate that the work on the brush pile will be complete?
Actually, we're just waiting for the vendor that we're purchasing the electronic gate system from to let us know the availability. I know it's everybody's excuse, but COVID has hindered the process with getting the electronic components. He's just waiting for an answer back from the manufacturer on when we could see them.
Okay. Is everybody's excuse because it's a real one, Adam? That's how it works this year.
Yes.
Bonnie, did you have any questions on this item?
No, I'm glad he explained it because I didn't understand a thing I was reading in the descriptions.
Okay. Yeah. So this seems like it'll be a big improvement to our leaf collection system. This does not help with other brush collection, right, Adam? Just leaves?
Just leaves. It will make it so that we do have 3 one-man leaf machines versus the traditional pull behind, which occupies about 4 employees.
Wow.
And you definitely do not cover nearly as much ground as you do with this one-man operation.
Okay. To what extent, how much of the debris we collect annually is leaves versus yard waste? We do the spring yard waste collection and then the autumn leaf collection, but I'm just curious what the breakdown is. How much we get in the spring versus in the fall?
I would say 60% of the cleanup we do is leaves. We pick up roughly 140 loads of leaves in our one-man machines alone. That doesn't count when we send out a loader and dump trucks to pick them up.
Okay. So that's substantial. Got it.
And it does count towards our MS4.
Okay. Excellent. Fantastic.
I do
Bonnie,
have one, yeah, I do have one quick question. We tell people it's only leaves out on the, in front of their house. Does this say there's brush underneath? Does this mess up the machine at all?
It will clog the chute and make it so that the employee has to come back into the brush pile and try to unclog the chute. It will definitely slow down the process.
But it doesn't damage the machine?
Not a whole lot. It's a steel impeller that spins rapidly. Rocks and things like that of that nature, or if there's some steel in the pile, something like that to that effect, that'll damage the machine. But the sticks really don't make it up into the machine itself because of the way the chute's designed. They get clogged up rapidly.
Well, hopefully our citizens are paying attention that we only pick up leaves. I have no further questions.
Great. Thanks, Bonnie. Yeah, and I don't have any further questions at this time. Bonnie, can I get a motion on this item?
I make a motion that we pass this on to the full body of council with a positive recommendation.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. All right, we have one final item then. We have several final items. One final item from Mr. Widner, excuse me. And that is a resolution authorizing the purchase of a 12-inch disc style brush bandit. Adam?
So this is a 12-inch disc style brush bandit model 250 XP. It is a chipper for the hazardous tree program. As you all are aware, we have our in-house forester. This tool would be a valued asset for him. We currently have a 1997 model. It is a 250 with 2,265 hours on it. This also is being funded through the DEP recycling grant. And the 10% match will be taken care of through the brush pile gate. Last year we removed 105 hazardous trees, including ones in the parks. This definitely takes away a lot of the density or space that we use at the brush pile for dumping. It consolidates it. It also makes the job for the guys out in the field taking down these trees a lot easier. The 1997 machine, it is still in working condition. It is just getting worn. And I'll entertain any questions you may have.
Okay, great. Bonnie, any questions that you might have?
No, I don't.
Okay. So Adam, all of this, go over for me again exactly what we're purchasing with the grant proceeds that we received. It's the equipment to help us better monitor the brush pile, the debris collector, and then this brush bandit. Anything else?
Nope, that's it.
Okay. Well, certainly it has come in handy. It is great to get new equipment, and even better to get new equipment and to do it via a grant. I don't think I have any further questions, but hearing nothing from anyone else out there, Bonnie, I would take a motion.
I make a motion, we pass this on to the full body of council with a positive recommendation.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Ms. Mealy, we are going to see if we can get the mayor in here now for you.
Okay. All right. Then let's pause for a second while we wait for, is someone else going to present the item? Joe, were you planning to do it? The mayor's name is on the agenda.
The mayor was doing it, I believe.
Okay. All right. Then I guess if he's not on the call yet, Adam, are you reaching out to him? You want me to?
He's walking in here right now to take over.
Fantastic.
Hello.
Hi. Hi, Derek. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Very good. Thank you. Okay. Except I've got some interference in the back seat here.
Right.
So we're moving back then to item number 3 on our agenda, which is an item authorizing the execution of a community contribution agreement. Derek, do you want to tell me
Yep.
what it is you worked out with UPMC?
Yep, it's just the standard agreement. From what I've been told, Norm Lubin has reviewed it. Community contribution from UPMC, 3-year agreement. McCormick has a conflict. They represent the hospital, so Norm, that's why he's one that reviewed it. Over the next 3 years, it would be retroactive, though. It starts. The agreement ended December of 19, the previous agreement. So this one would actually become active in January of 2020. And so I believe, do we have a representative from UPMC here? I don't believe. Who?
Mr. Johnson was on.
Oh, okay. I don't see him on, but they said he was. So that, yeah. And Norm reviewed it and gave it a positive recommendation. Didn't see any issues.
Excellent. Now, Norm couldn't be here today, correct, because Norm's in court. But he did say that he could answer or try to answer any questions that we might have.
Chris said Steve Johnson was on, but I don't see him anymore.
Okay.
So.
He's not.
He's still on? Okay, great. All right, Derek, one quick question. When you say standard agreement, what do you mean?
From what Norm told me, and I did not see the previous one. Norm said this was that was Norm's wording. He said this is the standard agreement that has come before us. I guess 3 years. Yeah.
Got it. It seems as though we've changed a couple of the parameters, though, from my recollection in the past. But okay, sounds good. Bonnie, did you want to start out with any questions?
Yes, there is some differences here, Mayor. In 2017, we were getting 150,000. Then in 2018, it went up to 153,000. And then in 2019, it went up to 154,000. And now we're back down to 150,000. So that's one of the changes. The other that I kind of question, and I would really, I'm going to throw this to Nick Grimes at this point. The verbiage bothers me a little bit about the purely public charity. I don't understand why that's in there at this point. And that I don't, I talked to Norm a little bit about this, and he said if there are any questions, he would try to be back in the office by 1:30, quarter off, if at all possible. But that's one of the things that does bother me. The other thing that bothered me was the new company that's taken over. Let me find the name of the company because I never can pronounce it right. Hold on 2 seconds here.
Bonnie, while you're looking for that, did you want me to address some of those figures from previous years? And
yes, please, Nick.
okay. So I did. Adam reached out to me. I think Vince reached out to me. I talked to Joe a little bit. One of the big differences with this contract, I guess, and before I preface any of my comments, I'm certainly not being critical of the agreement. I just want to be sure it's clear between both parties, the city and the hospital, and clear in the document, because I fully support what the hospital does in the area. They support us in a variety of direct and indirect ways, and I've always publicly supported what they do. But one of the big differences is in previous years, one of their pilot payments, and it's sort of broken down into 3 categories. For this one, it's 150,000, 13,000, and 50,000. But in previous years, one of those payments was based on the real estate that they purchased during their expansion when they purchased it. So if a house was on a property and the property was assessed at 100,000, they bought the property, tore the house down, it became tax exempt. They still paid taxes on $100,000. On a $100,000 assessed value. The bill for 2020 for that, if the agreement would have stayed in place, would have been about $170,000. This takes it back to $150,000 and sort of caps it at that. So if they would buy more property, if our tax rate would go up, a variety of things that would normally increase this agreement. This new agreement keeps it at $150,000. I'm in, no position to negotiate. That certainly council's in the mayor's position, but since it seems like you guys didn't have the previous contract. I just wanted to make sure that distinction was cleared up. I did also reach out. I think I spoke when Bonnie called me on the phone about that purely public charity. I think the purpose of that being in there is because they're saying this is why we're tax exempt. And I think that's okay. But I want to make sure, and this is a question for Norm, that we're not conceding that we agree that they're a purely public charity. And not saying that they're not, but we certainly haven't done our due diligence, and nor do we want to go through their financial statements and all of their records to make that determination ourselves. But we also don't want to get in an issue where if we have a lawsuit for whatever reason in 10 or 20 years, where we say that they're not a purely public charity because they have to pass, multiple criteria, multiple prongs of a HUP test that the Supreme Court set up. We don't want them to be able to go back and say, well, you signed this document and you already said we're a purely public charity and, lose our case. So I just think that needs to be clear in the document. And then, some of the other things that were just questions to be sure they're cleared up is in the previous agreement, their pilot for mercantile and business privilege tax stayed the same, $13,000, but the previous agreement listed specific entities within the hospital. There's certainly confidential information in business privilege taxes that we can't cover in a public meeting, but the new agreement just says it's a $13,000 pilot payment for business privilege taxes. So if they would have other entities that previously paid business privilege taxes, we would want to know if they still intend to pay that, or if this is to cover everything that they do for a business privilege tax payment. And then same with the taxable properties of real estate. The exhibit at the back of this agreement, which was not in the last agreement, lists many properties that are currently taxable that UPMC currently pays real estate taxes on. It seems to me it's a little ambiguous, but it seems to me that this agreement would allow us to still tax those properties. And it says that we won't challenge if a property is tax exempt or not, but I assume that they would still have to go through the process of going to the county and getting the property listed as tax exempt, and this agreement is not specifically saying that all of those properties are now tax exempt for real estate purposes. Again, I'm not 100% certain on that. It's a little ambiguous, but I believe that's what the agreement's saying, but we want to be sure that's clear because that's a considerable payment that they make for properties that are still considered taxable that the hospital owns. And I have another note here, unless somebody wanted to jump in there, that the only other thing with the purely public charity specifically is the hospital asked for an opt-out here if there was any Supreme Court decision or legislative change that would abolish real estate taxes, which I certainly understand. They want to protect themselves. I don't know if it makes sense for us to have a similar opt-out if there is a major legislative or judicial precedent that changes the taxability of hospitals specifically. And the only reason why I mention that now, and I'm not sure it's really going to apply to this case, but the Commonwealth Court just heard either last week or the week before a case in Allentown with a large hospital rehab facility and the taxability of it for mercantile and business privilege taxes. I don't think there's going to be a drastic decision that comes out of that, but it's likely that they're going to issue their ruling in 3 to 4 months. And if, that would change something dramatically in the state of PA, which is unlikely but could happen, I don't know if we need to, have an opt-out in there for the city.
Okay, I think those are all excellent points. Mayor Slaughter, can you tell me to what extent we've discussed those with the hospital?
I did not discuss the one that Steve had talked about, and he could elaborate on that. I'm not sure, he must have had to drop off, was the one property came off and I believe went back on the tax rolls. I believe that was what the decrease from the down to 150, from my understanding.
Okay.
As far as the court cases and all that, I was not aware of any of that.
Okay. Because I think there are, Nick raises some important points. Nick, when you say, the agreement acknowledges that the city acknowledges all of the units of UPMC as being public charities. However, the agreement also says that is only for the term of the agreement. Do you still interpret that as potentially once we acknowledge it, we can't unacknowledge it?
I think that's a better question for Norm. I think that, likely Norm could say that, well, no, we're not saying they are a purely public charity. We're saying that we agree that they say they are for tax purposes,
Right.
not that we think they are.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I just want to be sure that that's clear in the agreement, and Norm, it understands that there could be a potential long-term effect, and we have that clear.
And the other side too, and maybe this is a question for Norm as well, but Nick, if there was something that came out of that decision that does impact the agreement, would we have the ability to amend it based off of the court decision?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's another.
And do we have a termination clause in this agreement currently? I don't recollect. I read through it and don't remember seeing one, but I wasn't specifically looking.
I don't have it in front of me right at the moment.
I think the only termination I saw in there, I do have it here, is the hospital is able to terminate the agreement if there's a change that would abolish real estate taxes.
Right.
It says the agreement shall automatically renew for 1-year periods unless either party notifies the other party of intent not to renew before 12 months prior to the expiration of the original or extended term.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe we could check with Norm, but maybe we add, something in there that there's, a pending court case that this agreement may need to be amended if it impacts it, or, whatever the legal language would be.
Well, I also clearly think that we just want a termination
Right.
clause in there for our best interest, and I would assume the hospital should want one as well for theirs. Do you know what I mean? That just in case either entity would need to terminate the agreement for some reason, I think we want a clause in there outlining what that looks like.
And I believe the prior agreement that was a 5-year agreement that had a 12-month notice for either party to terminate. So perhaps it's something in that original 3-year term we want to bring back in.
I think this one has the same 12-month termination. So it does have a termination clause, but it's 12 months. So you have to give a full year's notice for a 3-year contract, which maybe is sufficient for us to protect us, but obviously is 1/3 of the contract.
Yeah. Well, and that's it doesn't allow for termination during the initial 36-month period, only during the successive periods, Nick. Do you know what I'm saying?
You're right. Yep, yeah. I do see that now. That's only for the automatic renewal after the 36 months.
Yeah. So I think we might want to, I would say that we certainly want to look at that. Just both, as I said, both in our best interest and the hospital's best interest. And Mayor Slaughter, I don't know if you can speak to, or if Mr. Johnson's back on for some reason, if he can speak to why it was the hospital was looking to fix these rates instead of the sort of variable agreement that we'd had previously.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I cannot speak to that. And Mr. Johnson is not back on at the moment.
Okay.
And we keep pretty careful.
I do have another question. I did find the company, it's Aramark, that has taken over the operations.
That was actually the previous company, Bonnie. They were the ones who I think they're still there to an extent, but they did a very large portion of work in the hospital. And I think the hospital themselves took over a major portion of what Aramark does.
Yeah, I believe it was hospitality, and that I think UPMC brought pretty much all of that, as Nick said, back in-house.
Right, which is certainly, their choice, and they have that. But Aramark was a private company, for-profit company that paid taxes here, a considerable amount of taxes, and obviously that has a financial impact on us. Them bringing that work in-house, lowers our business privilege revenue, and it could certainly help us to see that pilot arrangement for the business privilege portion go up to help cover some of that. Like I said, it's totally their choice to do that, but it's certainly something that hurts us a little bit with a nonprofit taking over work that is directly in competition with a for-profit company.
Right. I think that's an exceptionally valid point too. I don't know. It seems to me like there are a handful of questions. I would like to see, Mayor Slaughter, has the hospital voted on this item yet?
I'm not sure. I
Okay.
could find out.
Um,
I mean, if
because-
you want to, do you want to table it for 2 weeks? And
Well, I guess it seems to me like we should definitely have some sort of a termination clause in there, even if it's 12 months notice, you know. So, but we could probably accomplish that by Thursday, but that does depend on whether or not the hospital has taken it through their sort of process yet. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Because if they've already approved it, then if we make any modifications, they're going to have to revisit that. And so, you know, it might trigger more kind of more discussion. The one thing that I would like to do is have a conversation with Norm Lubin about it, maybe in a meeting. So I don't know that you know, the administration is I believe is still in a position to pull it from the agenda for Thursday, but it might actually be wiser for us to have a discussion with Norm. Will Norm be our solicitor on Thursday? Does anyone know?
No, we won't. It's Austin.
I
already asked that.
Okay.
So, yeah, I think if we pull it for 2 weeks, at least we'd have Norm in 2 weeks.
Yeah. Well, certainly, I think
We can't table this at a committee meeting,
Yeah,
though.
right, right.
we can
I mean,
split it, and Derek can't table it either, but the administration can pull it and put it on for the
Right.
third.
right. Yeah, and I'm fine if that's what I don't have any issues with that, if that's what you'd like to do.
Okay. You know, like I said, I'd actually just prefer to have some further discussions about it, but we are somewhat hampered by the fact that the solicitor who negotiated it won't be there to have the discussions and that the other solicitor has a conflict.
Right, right, right.
But I'll leave that up to the administration. We can either leave it on the agenda and council can act to table it if that is the general will of council. I suspect that would be, or we can pull it, you know, I think you guys can still pull it at this point, and we can just revisit it at finance here in 2 weeks, hopefully with
Okay.
Mr. input, and then move it to the full body of council on Thursday.
Okay, yep.
But it would certainly be nice in the meantime to have discussions about that termination clause with UPMC.
Yep.
And also to clarify what their procedure is and to what extent they've gone through their process with the agreement. So
Yep.
that if we want any changes, what would have to happen, you know, or if
Yep.
we were to propose any changes, what would have to happen for them to approve it.
Yep, I'll find all that out. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
But yeah, I think we clearly have had a good and a very collaborative relationship with UPMC for a long time. So
Yeah, they've
all
been
is-
part of the Park Avenue study and
Right,
many
there's-
other initiatives. So yeah,
and
Sorry,
I think
I didn't mean to cut you off.
yeah, I was going to say, I think we hope to work with them for, you know, on progressive, you know, items for the city here moving forward.
Right.
So none of this is about is directly about the agreement. It's just, there are a couple of modifications that have happened this year from last year that I think we should look at and understand the impact of, both to the city's budget and also to UPMC, so that we have a kind of a more comprehensive understanding of what the pilot's going to look like moving forward.
Yeah, got it.
Okay. Bonnie, do you have any other questions?
No, just that we realize that, you know, this is not something that's written in cement. It's given to us. The hospital helps us out, and we appreciate everything that the hospital does do for us. There's many areas that they give back to the city. We just want to make sure that we're all safe and everything is written down, that we are not going to mess up anywhere.
Yeah, well, I think we just want to make sure that we're all kind of on the same page and understand
Exactly.
moving forward.
Good.
Yeah, but
How do we just pass this on with no recommendation then?
yeah, I think we can do that for right now. Just pending, you know, some questions that we need some legal help to figure out. You want to make that motion, Bonnie?
We can either do no recommendation or we can pass it on to recommend tabling it. What would you?
Yeah, we recommend a table, I guess. I think either one is fine. To a certain extent, no recommendation might
Okay,
be
I'll
appropriate.
make a
But,
motion that we pass it on with no recommendation.
all right, I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thanks to the administration for all your thoughtful work on this item, and we look forward to discussing it more in the future. What was I going to say? And
Nick,
let me
thank you
see.
very much.
Yeah, Nick in particular, thank you. All right. And then moving forward, we have just two further items on the agenda. Any related items, which is always last, but then item number 7 is a review of the financial reports. Bonnie, I don't know how you feel about this, but Joe Pavlak, I was going to propose that we wait until Adam Yoder's in attendance as well at our next finance meeting to look at those financial reports, if you'd be comfortable with waiting.
I would be very comfortable with waiting.
Joe, is that okay with you as well? Are you planning to be in attendance at the next finance meeting?
I have no problem with that.
Okay, then I think we'll hold off on item number 7 until October 3rd. Meaning that the final item for this agenda is any related items. Does anyone have anything else they'd like to discuss? Joe? Anybody out there?
Yeah, I guess
Sorry.
Yeah, is there anybody breathing?
thinking. No, the administration's currently working on getting the budget put together. I know the mayor wants to have more involvement with that process. So I guess we're looking for some advice on what a way to get some involvement might be able to occur. I think that there's been talk maybe having finance interact in some dialogue on the budget and the issues that are coming up prior to the work sessions, but
Personally, I think that'd be
more to add to that, but what would council's thought or finance thought be?
Well, Bonnie, I mean, I would personally think that finance would be a good venue to start discussing the budget. It seems as though we have 3 council members who are routinely in attendance, obviously. And then it seems as though it's a time when other council members are generally able to drop in, and a day when a lot of people have blocked out time for committee meetings. Bonnie, how would you feel about that?
I would like that very much. Yes.
And with the exception of today, when our agenda was somewhat full, I feel generally speaking we've had lighter agendas recently. I think once again related to the pandemic, as everything is this year. So with that said, hopefully we would have a little bit of extra time that we could devote to discussing the upcoming budget. And I think it would really, really, really be nice to set a precedent of getting out ahead of things and having those discussions before the end of November, which really just kind of puts all of us in a time bind. So I thank the administration for the initiative, and Joe, if you'd be comfortable with that, I think putting it on the finance agenda moving forward. When will the administration begin to have some proposals that they would want to bring out?
We're working on some final departments currently. I guess tentatively we can put a department or so. I think maybe breaking it down into departments. I don't know how many more. There's 2 more meetings before budgets are put out. The 2 November meetings. So maybe trying to find a way to break it down for those that we have an idea of that are heading, and then like streets and parks, and some of your smaller offices, and then maybe public safety. Meeting in November.
Sounds great. I think that sounds like a plan, Joe.
Okay.
Do you want to just get with Janice and put that on the agenda when you decide when you talking to me decide how we want to do it, or do you want me to have Janice put something on right now?
Just put it on as a standing item. If we have to
Got it.
delay it, we can do it, but there's not that many meetings going out through the end of November, so we should get something on there and plan on doing something. So
okay, sounds great. Then I'll just have her put budget discussions on. Janice, if you're out there, would you do that?
You got it.
Thank you.
and that'll let other members of council know in case they want to jump in and sit in on discussion.
Yeah, I will. I'll do my best to remember to send out an email to the other members of council to mention that that's how we're handling it this year. Sounds great. But yeah, thanks. It was a terrific idea on the part of the administration. We appreciate the attempt to include us a little earlier in the whole thing. What was I going to say? I think in that case, that brings us to the end of our agenda. Hearing no one else with a related item out there in the world. Oh, excuse me, Bonnie, you did mention, and I forgot that I need to do a quick roll call. I'll take input from those who'd like to help me remember who was here. But Janice, we had present my Liz Mealy and Bonnie Katz, Randy Allison, and John Mackey from City Council. Adam Yoder was absent.
And Vince Pelizzi.
Oh, and Vince Pelizzi was on as well. Excuse me. Then we had Gretchen Kennedy and Tyler Mogavero, who were interviewing for commission positions. Joe Pavlak, Mayor Slaughter, Adam Winder, Chris Cooley, Nicholas Grimes from the Treasurer's Office, and Woodring, the administrator. Yep. And then I guess we briefly had Steve Johnson and then lost him, it sounded like. Was there anyone else that we heard from that I'm not remembering?